Welcome everyone to this week's edition of Madison Noteworthy. I'm your host, Sarah Young of Zing Collaborative, and I have the pleasure of being here today with Austin Grandt of Export Abroad. Austin, great to have you here today.
Thanks, I'm happy to be here.
To start us off, what inspired you to start Export Abroad?
Yeah, I actually got the idea for Export Abroad when I was at the U.S. Commercial Service. I was a sophomore in college, and because I was an intern, I was the one doing all of the data processing for helping companies expand internationally. So at the U.S. Commercial Service, small to medium-sized companies come to us and ask questions about where should I be going abroad, what are my opportunities for exporting. And because I was the guy doing all the data processing, I realized it was all being done by hand. Basically, I was copying and pasting data from the web into Excel and writing a model around it. And that was taking forever. Even for me, it was taking 10, 12 hours of work. And so I did a little bit of research, and I realized that export consulting firms were charging $7,000 to $12,000 or more dollars for a single market research report. And I could do it with a computer and automate most of the process and basically lower the barrier to entry.
Something that really strikes me about what you're doing is you are taking an analytical approach to something that is often, as you said, manual. What's that been like?
That's been interesting. The exporting is notoriously handshake and relationship based, right? And I still think to an extent it definitely still is. Where we kind of come into the process is really early. We're almost before you're making those relationships. So that's been actually probably one of our hurdles to get around is explaining to people, you don't necessarily need to be having all these relationships, be flying all over the world before, you should really have more of a strategic plan. What we found is international expansion is reactive versus proactive, which means, they'll get an inquiry from someone abroad and then they'll do something about it. Why aren't they reaching out to that company in the first place or reaching out to more companies in the first place? And that's kind of where we come into the picture. So it has been interesting trying to educate people about, what the process is like, but it's been pretty fun. So,
is there a habit or something you do regularly that you would say has contributed to your success?
I think that the number one habit that has contributed to my success is trying to do things consistently on a daily basis, right? So if you want to be super productive, setting up a time where I need to hammer out these 3 tasks, right? I think a lot of times I used to get lost in this one large big task, but breaking it up and feeling like I'm progressing towards that end goal really helps out, and also just kind of that whittling out your own 2-hour block of time where kind of undisturbed and you can work on the things that you want.
Absolutely, that's a good point. Research has found that by doing something completely unrelated, we're actually more productive in the end too.
Right.
Yeah, so speaking of being refreshed and avoiding burnout, how do you decompress? What do you like to do when you're not working to unwind?
Man, when I'm not working, I bike a lot. So I also just I travel quite a bit. I read a lot too. I don't know. Try to keep that time separate and not be looking at my phone as much and things like that. It's hard, but just really biking around and trying to be outdoors, that type of thing.
That's great.
Yeah.
Austin, it's been a pleasure talking with you today and learning a little bit more about you and about Export Abroad.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
My pleasure. Thanks everyone for joining us today on Madison Noteworthy. We look forward to seeing you again next week.